Hey, it's Obs here, and a balancing patch for Hearthstone has come out today, and we are going to go over the standard changes in this video, and then I'll do a separate one for mercenaries in a little bit. And honestly, some of these changes are quite shocking, as they do really hurt some of the decks that they are trying to nerf, but also don't target some of the decks that also probably should have got nerfed if these ones do too. We are going to start with the neutral cards and then go from there. The first card that got a change was School Teacher, which got changed from a 4-cost minion with 5 attack, 4 HP, to a 4-cost minion with 4 attack, 3 HP. This is actually a change that probably was necessary because it is being used in basically every single deck that currently exists. If you can do any type of Naga synergy, or you need some cheap spells to have additional copies of, this is a perfect card for that situation. It's kind of sad to see it because it's not necessarily a card that I would like to see nerfed, as it is a real fun card to just play around with. But honestly, I don't think this will make the card any less playable than it currently is. Sure, you are losing one worth of stats, but you still have the synergy that you can actually have either in Naga Mage or any other Naga based deck where you want to play a bunch of Nagas, and this is honestly probably one of the better ones to have. And for the next card that got changed, one that's long overdue, Mr. Smite. Mr. Smite got changed from a 6 mana minion to a 7-cost minion. I don't think this will do anything to kill the card absolutely overall, but given one of the other changes that we'll be talking about later in this video, I do think this will make it a lot better to actually play against, since you won't be able to get a 1-cost version of it really easily. And because we are also seeing some other cards, again, later in the video that are getting changed too, this is honestly one of the better changes overall, as it is just a very frustrating card to actually play against. But at the same time, I don't think it'll change much because it still is a charge minion, and if you have any way to actually buff up this minion in any sort of manner easily for cheap, it's still going to be very powerful, and most decks will probably still run it that already ran him. Now, for the first non-neutral card, Battleworn Vanguard got changed from a 2-cost minion with 2 attack, 2 HP, to a 2-cost minion with 1 HP. This actually makes it a lot worse in a mirror match, which is kind of interesting, and makes it a lot easier to actually remove in classes like Mage or some other classes that only have access to 1 damage. I think this is honestly a change that is kind of long overdue, as this is always a really powerful turn 3 play for Demon Hunter, and it's kind of frustrating to actually play against if you don't have any type of AoE to instantly kill it. Sometimes it just sits on the board for a few turns, and it's usually, if you play on turn 3, just 4/4 worth of stats on 3 bodies, which is kind of frustrating to play against. And honestly, while this does hurt the card a lot, I do think this one will probably see play still, as Aggro Demon Hunter seems to be the Demon Hunter deck that actually works real well. And now for the next card that got changed, it's Carial Fellsoul, which was a 6-cost minion, and now is a 7-cost minion. This prevents you from high rolling with the Demon Hunter Colossus minion, which is good. And while you can't cheat it out 1 turn earlier, this is kind of an indirect buff because it does make that minion a lot harder to actually kill the main body if your opponent doesn't have a way to deal with it. So they'll have to actually target the tentacles instead of the main body, which is fine, I guess. It's one of those cards that was getting real popular, just not in the deck that they meant it in, and they wanted to target that deck, and this was one of the easiest ways without targeting some of the newer cards. Now, for the next class, Birth Scales is going from a 1-cost Druid spell to a 2-cost Druid spell. I don't think this will actually do anything because we aren't seeing Celestial Alignment actually getting nerfed, and Druid does have a way to get 20 mana, so this change just makes it a little bit harder to actually gain the armor on a given turn that you might actually need it, but it is still powerful enough and easily comboed with things like Miracle Growth or other cards that allow you to put down a big minion for very cheap. I get what they're trying to do here, but the one worry that I have with this change and some of the other changes that we'll see in a little bit is the fact that some of the other decks that didn't actually get nerfed, such as Balm Rogue are going to have a much easier time in matchups against decks that had a bunch of armor gain, which were the ways that Balm Rogue actually was held down a little bit. I don't know why they didn't decide to actually touch Balm Rogue, but they decided not to. I guess they thought Thief Rogue was more of an issue. I think the Balm Rogue deck is going to be very, very popular after today's nerfs. Now, for the next card, Spitlash Siren got changed from a 4-cost minion to a 5-cost minion with 1 additional HP. A decent overall change. I know this card is really frustrating to actually play against if the person does high roll. It is similar to Dark Glare from Warlock in a past set that actually just rotated out, though this is a little bit more fair to actually play against because you can't easily trigger both back and forth, though you can cheat out a lot of mana even still with it costing 5. This just delays the big blowout turn for an additional turn when you actually are playing this. I think this is probably a positive change for the overall health of the game and probably something that they were doing just to make sure that the deck didn't run rampant after some of the other nerfs that we are actually seeing. And now Carial is getting changed to a 8-cost hero card instead of a 7, and because they're nerfing some of the other aggro based decks, they wanted to make sure control didn't actually just go absolutely insane. And this is again another one of those cards that just feels really awful to play against if you don't have any type of removal for its weapon. However, again, because Balm Rogue does exist and they didn't touch the deck at all, nerfing this card to be 8 mana is kind of weird to me, especially because it seems like they're trying to move away from control, but they said at the beginning of the year that they wanted more control decks to be around, so I don't know what they're actually planning in the future. Maybe they're trying to future-proof for the next set, who knows. I think this won't change people playing this card, but at the same time, it might be a lot harder to actually want to run. If aggro decks become a lot more popular, then this card will be a lot harder one to actually use to its full potential just because of the 1 mana change. 1 mana change can actually do a lot in the long run, but at the same time, it really just depends on how the game actually shapes around this. And now, for a change that probably should have never been done in the first place, Wildpaw Null is being reverted back to being a 3-attack minion instead of 4. This is a change that I was so shocked that they did in the first place when they unnerfed it. There's no way this wasn't going to happen eventually. I'm shocked it actually didn't get even worse than it was originally, as Maestro just allows this card to exist as a very powerful card that there's no reason not to run it in any type of rogue deck. I guess this is an indirect nerf to Balm Rogue, but at the same time it's more of a targeted nerf towards Thief Rogue where you could get this on turn 1 still. Either way, this is a very nice change to see because this is a very frustrating card to actually play against. I don't know if this will stop people from running it, but I think it'll be less widespread than it currently is. And now, for Warrior's first card from the depths, has been changed to a 4-cost spell. This is something that should have been done anyways. I honestly can't see a reason why this isn't a really good change. I don't think this will make it not playable. Sure, it does delay from the depths for 1 turn, but being able to discount a bunch of big minions is always really powerful, and Warrior does have a lot of big spells too. So again, 3 mana cheat on 5 cards of your deck is actually pretty powerful, and honestly probably won't make that much of a difference, only costing 1 more. But I like the combos that this enables, even if some of them are unfun to play against. So I'm okay with this. Now, Shield Shatter is being changed to only do 4 damage to all minions, which is a nerf that is probably targeted to make sure that control doesn't run out of control with a bunch of nerfs to some of the aggro-based decks in the metagame. Honestly, this probably won't change how much this is actually played in a control warrior deck, as it is only 1 damage. It does make some weird breakpoints where you can't get rid of mech that buffs itself for every single mech that you actually play after you play 2 additional mechs, which might be a little frustrating there, but overall I think this is probably a good change. And again, this is a card for aggro based matchups and it doesn't really change its value there. And now for the next card, Tidal Revenant, which is something that a lot of people, including myself, were shocked about how good this card actually was. is being changed to only gain 5 armor instead of 8. This is probably a decent overall change, again, made because some of the aggro decks are actually getting hit, and probably we'll see still some play because 5 free damage is still 5 free damage, especially because it can target the face, and if you have any ways to duplicate this card or discount it, such as from the depths, it's still going to be a very powerful card. I'm just kind of sad that I didn't get to cover a elemental warrior deck before this change actually went out, as that did look like a real fun deck to actually play, but maybe I'll still try to cover it next week. We'll see. And now for the next card, Noelles pirate ship. The body of the warrior colossus minion is being changed to only reduce the costs of each pirate you discover by 1 instead of 2-1. This is a really good change, and honestly probably absolutely destroys the card, which is kind of sad. I don't like seeing cards absolutely destroyed, but in the case of this one, it definitely was needed. Going against any type of warrior deck where they generate this, or any other deck that uses a Bastard or Phelan, where they generate a Mr. Smite off of this, plus a bunch of big pirates, and you just lose instantly, is so not fun to actually play against overall. And honestly, I'm really happy to see this one being done. Even if it does end up killing the card in the end, then again, you never know. It's one of those cards that if you can generate an additional Mr. Smite, even if it only costs 6 instead of 7 now, then it probably will still be pretty decent, as Mr. Smite is just a very high impact card. Out of all the changes actually made today, I think this is the one that's most likely to actually just make this card non-existent in the metagame. I could be completely wrong when I say this, but I really do hope that this card just disappears outside of random generation within the metagame. It's really just no fun to play against, even if I had some fun actually making some Colossus minion based decks. Alright, so those were all the nerfs besides the one that only impacts wild, and since I don't cover wild on the channel, I figured I'd just skip over it. Let me know down below what you think of all these individual nerfs, and like always, if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, bye bye.